a plea that was in fact pending before the Delhi High Court to suspend Satyendra Jain from his posts and in fact had called on the High Court to rule on this. It's something that the High Court has now put back in the court of the Delhi government led by Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. Now Satyendra Jain of course faces allegations of money laundering and has been arrested since May this year, and the court has in fact refused to interfere and has said this is a call that needs to be taken by the Delhi government. Let me go across to Nilashish for more on this. Nilashish, this ultimately has to be an executive decision taken by members of the Delhi government, of course led by Arvind Kejriwal. The Delhi High Court refusing to interfere in the plea and putting the ball back in the court of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal.
Well, yes, absolutely. The Delhi High Court has dismissed the plea for suspension of Satyendra Jain as the Delhi minister, but having dismissed this plea, it has said that it cannot really interfere with this decision and said that it is upon the CM Arvind Kejriwal to see whether or not he wants to continue with someone with a criminal background as a part of his ministry, his cabinet of ministers. So someone who has been charged with serious offences, which includes issues of moral turpitude, given the fact that it is to do with the PMLA case that he's being investigated by the ED for. In such a situation, is it really right, or is it in the best interest of the state to really continue with Satyendra Jain as a minister, is something that is left upon the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. Though the court has dismissed the appeal, it was filed by a former BJP MLA, saying that after he is in judicial custody, given the fact that he is being investigated, he should be suspended. The court has dismissed that appeal, but has put the ball squarely in the court of the Delhi Chief Minister as to whether or not a minister...
we're joined right now. Thanks for that, Nilashish. We're actually joined by Pranesh from the newsroom as well. But before that, let's take a reaction from the BJP's Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. Mr. Bhatia, the Delhi High Court has in fact put the onus now on the Delhi government to act on the suspension of Mr. Satyendra Jain. Your response?
It is a reprimandation of the Delhi government, and the reason is very clear that a minister who is involved in a money laundering matter, such a serious charge, is not Kattar Imandar but Kattar Beimaan, and he is looting the people of the country and he must be punished. Now the Delhi High Court has rightly said that it doesn't fall within its jurisdiction to issue a mandamus or a direction to the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. However, the observations made are clear in their intent that the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal should forthwith remove Satyendar Jain, who has not been granted bail, and he has been behind bars for almost 55 days now.
Right, many thanks for that response. We also in fact have the petitioner on the line with us, Mr. Nand Kishore Garg, who had filed this petition seeking the suspension of Mr. Satyendra Jain. Mr. Garg, thank you for joining us. Are you disappointed with the Delhi High Court's response, which was quite predictable, because this is ultimately an executive decision that has to be taken? But what do you have to say about the observations it has made?
No, I am not disappointed at all, because the observations are most important. When I fought the case against their first minister, Jitendra Singh Tomar, the same Kejriwal asked him to resign after 24 hours. But the things are changing and the Kattar Imandar लोग ज़्यादा ढीठ हो गए हैं. तो क्योंकि इन्होंने महाराष्ट्र से वो ले लिया, मुझे लगता है वो नवाब मलिक और वो अनिल परब अंदर रहे, सरकार चली गई, अंदर आज भी हैं, रिजाइन नहीं मांगा. ये मुझे लगता है कोलिशन पॉलिटिक्स की और ये जो मजबूरियां हैं, आज उसी को देखा देखी पार्थ चैटर्जी रिजाइन नहीं कर रहे हैं, जेल में हैं. तो आज ये जुडिशरी की मजबूरी मैं भी समझता हूँ. चीफ जस्टिस ने जो बोला है जी, ऑरल तो पहले भी बोला था, परंतु ये दुर्भाग्य है कि जो ग्रे एरियाज हैं, यहाँ मॉरल एथिकल लाइफ, राजनीति में छोटी छोटी बातों पे लोग रिजाइन करते रहे हैं. कभी जगजीवन राम ने रिजाइन किया था तो एक रेल दुर्घटना हुई थी, माधवराव सिंधिया ने किया था एक जहाज दुर्घटना के बाद जी. और आज ये स्थिति आ गई है कि सब कुछ होने के बाद प्रॉपर्टी अटैच हो गई है, जेल के अंदर हैं, बेल नहीं दे रही है जुडिशरी, वही जुडिशरी. पर जुडिशरी की मजबूरी है, और इन कामों में मुझे लगता है कि चीफ जस्टिस ने जो कल थोड़ा इशारा किया है,
Nevertheless, strong observations made by the Delhi High Court there. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Garg. Let me go across to Pranesh as well. For some of the observations that have been made, Pranesh, can you take us through what the Delhi High Court actually said when putting the ball back virtually in Mr. Kejriwal's court?
That's right. Following his arrest in a money laundering case that the ED is investigating, there have been people who've moved court seeking suspension. This was one such petition in which the High Court has now put the onus on Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. Let me read out what the court has said verbatim. It is pertinent to note at this juncture that while it is not for the court to issue directions to the Chief Minister, it is the duty of the court to remind these two duty holders about their role with regard to upholding the tenets of our Constitution. The Chief Minister exercises discretion in choosing the members of the Cabinet and to formulate a policy pertaining to appointment of Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers has a collective responsibility to sustain and uphold the integrity of the Constitution of India, and it is for the Chief Minister to act in the best interest of the state and consider as to whether a person who has criminal background and or has been charged with offences involving moral turpitude should be appointed and should be allowed to continue as a minister or not.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that, Pranesh. And this has a certain sanctity for the simple reason that this is a written order. These are not oral observations. Let me go across to Nilashish for more on this. Nilashish, the very fact that this has in fact been penned down by the courts in a written order would mean that there would be some pressure brought to bear on Mr. Kejriwal to act against Mr. Satyendra Jain.
Well, undoubtedly, the court, as we were discussing, has said that it is not for the court to judge whether it is a good person or a bad person. But as far as good governance is concerned, the ethos of the Constitution should be upheld. And in fact, to add to what Pranesh said, reading out from the order which is in my hand at this point, it was also said that there is a presumption that the Chief Minister would be well advised and guided by such constitutional principles as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the father of the Indian Constitution, had stated during the Constituent Assembly debates. So the observations are with regard to the fact that even though the court can't sit in judgment of what is good or bad, it can remind the constitutional functionaries to preserve, protect and promote the ethos of our Constitution. Now clearly it is a very clear message that, okay, the court cannot really take such a decision. It is for the executive. And is it really something that a Chief Minister wants to do in keeping a person...
Right, thanks a lot for that, Nilashish. Important observations by the Delhi High Court there.